Chapter 1. A Princess in Austria. Marie Antoinette was born on November 2nd, 1755, in Vienna, Austria. She was the youngest daughter of Empress Maria Theresa and Emperor Francis I. Her full name was Maria Antonia Josepha Johanna. It was a long name for a little girl who would one day become queen. From the beginning, Marie's life was filled with luxury. She lived in the grand Schönbrunn Palace, with its beautiful gardens and golden rooms. She had everything a child could want: toys, fine clothes, and servants to care for her. But her life was not just about fun and games. Marie's mother, Empress Maria Theresa, was a powerful ruler. She believed in duty above all else. She wanted her children to understand their responsibilities. Marie and her siblings were taught to behave like royalty. They learned to speak several languages, play music, and dance gracefully. But they were also taught to obey without question. Marie was a lively and charming child. She loved music and art. She enjoyed playing with her brothers and sisters. But she was not very interested in her studies. Her tutors often complained that she was lazy. She preferred to daydream or play instead of focusing on her lessons. Life in the palace was not always easy. Marie's mother was strict and demanding. She expected her children to be perfect. Marie often felt the pressure to meet her mother's high standards. She wanted to please her, but it was not always easy. When Marie was 10 years old, her life changed forever. Her father, Emperor Francis I, died suddenly. Marie was heartbroken. She loved her father dearly, and his death left a deep void in her life. The palace, once filled with laughter, became a place of sadness. Empress Maria Theresa was now a widow. She had to rule Austria alone. She also had to think about the future of her children. In those days, royal marriages were not about love. They were about politics and alliances. Maria Theresa wanted to strengthen Austria's ties with France. She decided that Marie would marry the future King of France, Louis Auguste. Marie was only 14 years old when she learned about her fate. She was shocked and scared. She had never met Louis, and she knew nothing about France. She would have to leave her family, her home, and everything she knew. The preparations for the marriage began immediately. Marie's mother hired tutors to teach her about French customs and etiquette. Marie had to learn how to speak French perfectly. She also had to change her appearance. Her teeth were straightened, and her hair was styled in the latest fashion. Marie's last days in Austria were filled with mixed emotions. She was excited about becoming a queen, but she was also sad to leave her family. She knew she might never see them again. Her mother gave her advice and reminded her of her duty. Marie listened carefully, but her heart was heavy. On April 21st, 1770, Marie left Austria for France. She traveled in a grand carriage, accompanied by a large entourage. The journey was long and tiring. Marie felt lonely and uncertain about her future. She wondered if she would be happy in her new life. As she crossed the border into France, Marie took a deep breath. She was no longer Maria Antonia of Austria. She was now Marie Antoinette, the future Queen of France. Her childhood was over. A new chapter was about to begin. The people of France were eager to meet their new princess. They had heard stories about her beauty and charm. But Marie was nervous. She knew that her every move would be watched. She would have to prove herself to a new country and a new family. Marie's journey was not just a physical one. It was also a journey of the heart. She was leaving behind the safety of her childhood and stepping into the unknown. She would face many challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was just a young girl, trying to be brave. As the carriage rolled closer to Versailles, Marie looked out the window. She saw the grand palace in the distance. It was a symbol of power and luxury, but it was also a place of secrets and intrigue. Marie took a deep breath. She was ready to face her destiny. Little did she know that her life would be filled with both joy and sorrow. She would experience love and loss, triumph and tragedy. But that was all in the future. For now she was just a princess, leaving her home behind and stepping into a new world. The story of Marie Antoinette was about to begin. Chapter 2. A Royal Wedding. Marie Antoinette arrived in France on May 14, 1770. She was just 14 years old. The journey from Austria had been long and tiring, but now she was in a new country, ready to start a new life. Her first stop was the border between Austria and France. There, a special ceremony took place. Marie had to say goodbye to everything Austrian. She even had to leave her Austrian clothes and servants behind. From now on, she would be French in every way. Marie felt a mix of emotions. She was excited to meet her future husband, Louis Auguste. But she was also nervous. She had never met him before. She wondered what he would be like. After the ceremony, Marie continued her journey to Versailles. The French people lined the roads to catch a glimpse of their new princess. They cheered and waved as her carriage passed by. Marie smiled and waved back, but inside she was anxious. Finally, Marie arrived at the Palace of Versailles. It was the most magnificent building she had ever seen. The palace was huge, with hundreds of rooms and beautiful gardens, but it was also intimidating. Marie knew that life here would be very different from what she was used to. The first meeting between Marie and Louis was awkward. Louis was 15 years old, just 1 year older than Marie. He was shy and quiet. Marie tried to make conversation, but Louis seemed unsure of what to say. The young couple was clearly nervous. The wedding took place on May 16, 1770. It was a grand event, attended by hundreds of guests. Marie wore a beautiful white dress, decorated with diamonds and pearls. Louis wore a suit of gold and silver. The ceremony was held in the royal chapel at Versailles. As Marie walked down the aisle, all eyes were on her. She looked like a princess from a fairy tale, but inside she was trembling. She was about to marry a boy she barely knew. The wedding ceremony was long and formal. Marie and Louis exchanged vows and rings. They promised to love and honor each other. But for Marie, it felt more like a duty than a celebration. After the ceremony, there was a lavish feast. The tables were filled with delicious food and fine wine. There was music and dancing. But Marie felt out of place. She didn't know many people, and the French court was very different from what she was used to. That night, Marie and Louis were taken to their wedding chamber. It was a tradition for the royal couple to be watched as they went to bed. This was to prove that the marriage was real. Marie felt embarrassed and uncomfortable. She was just a young girl, and this was all very strange to her. The next morning, Marie woke up early. She looked around the grand room and felt a wave of loneliness. She missed her family and her home in Austria. She wondered if she would ever feel happy in this new place. Life at Versailles was not easy for Marie. The French court was full of strict rules and traditions. Every move she made was watched and judged. She had to dress a certain way, speak a certain way, and behave a certain way. Marie struggled to adapt. She was used to a more relaxed life in Austria. Here, she felt like she was always being criticized. The courtiers whispered behind her back. They didn't like that she was Austrian. They thought she was too young and inexperienced. Louis was not much help. He was kind, but distant. He spent most of his time hunting or working on his hobbies. He didn't seem interested in spending time with Marie. The young couple was married, but they were more like strangers than husband and wife. Marie tried to make friends, but it was difficult. The court was full of gossip and jealousy. She didn't know who to trust. She often felt lonely and isolated. One day, Marie received a letter from her mother, Empress Maria Theresa. Her mother reminded her of her duty. She told Marie to be strong and to make the best of her situation. Marie read the letter over and over again. She wanted to make her mother proud, but it was hard. As the weeks passed, Marie began to feel more comfortable at Versailles. She started to learn the rules of the court. She made a few friends, including the Princess de Lamballe, who became one of her closest companions. Marie also began to enjoy the luxuries of her new life. She loved the beautiful clothes, the fine food, and the grand parties. She became known for her sense of style and her love of fashion. But not everyone was happy with Marie's behavior. Some people thought she was too extravagant. They criticized her for spending too much money. Marie didn't understand why they were so harsh. She was just trying to make the best of her situation. Despite the challenges, Marie was determined to succeed. She wanted to be a good wife and a good queen. She knew that her life would not be easy, but she was ready to face whatever came her way. The story of Marie Antoinette was just beginning. She had a long journey ahead of her. There would be moments of joy and moments of sorrow. But for now, she was a young bride, trying to find her place in a new world. As she looked out the window of her grand palace, Marie took a deep breath. She was no longer a princess of Austria. She was now the Dauphine of France. Her life would never be the same again. The future was uncertain, but Marie was ready to face it. She would do her best to fulfill her duty and make her family proud. Little did she know that her story would become one of the most famous in history. The royal wedding was over, but Marie's journey was just beginning. Chapter 3. Life at Versailles. Marie Antoinette's new life at Versailles was like a dream and a nightmare. The palace was breathtakingly beautiful. Its grand halls were filled with gold, crystal, and priceless art. The gardens were vast and perfectly manicured. Everywhere Marie looked, there was luxury. But beneath the surface, Versailles was a place of secrets, gossip, and pressure. At first, Marie was enchanted by her new home. She loved the grand parties, the elegant balls, and the endless entertainment. She quickly became the center of attention. Her beauty, charm, and sense of style made her popular among the courtiers. She wore the latest fashions, with elaborate hairstyles and stunning dresses. People admired her, but they also watched her every move. Marie enjoyed the freedom to explore her interests. She loved music, theater, and art. She often attended concerts and performances. She also spent time in the gardens, where she could escape from the strict rules of the court. For a young girl, it was a world of wonder. But life at Versailles was not all fun and games. The French court was a place of rigid traditions and strict etiquette. Every action, every word, and even every gesture had to be perfect. Marie struggled to follow all the rules. She was used to a more relaxed life in Austria. Here, she felt like she was always being judged. The courtiers were quick to criticize Marie. They didn't like that she was Austrian. They thought she was too young and inexperienced. They whispered behind her back, spreading rumors and gossip. Marie tried to ignore them, but it was hard. She wanted to fit in, but she felt like an outsider. One of the biggest challenges Marie faced was her relationship with Louis. The young couple was married, but they were not close. Louis was shy and reserved. He spent most of his time hunting or working on his hobbies. He didn't seem interested in spending time with Marie. She tried to connect with him, but it was difficult. Marie's loneliness grew. She missed her family and her home in Austria. She wrote letters to her mother, Empress Maria Theresa, who always reminded her of her duty. Marie wanted to make her mother proud, but she felt overwhelmed. To cope with her feelings, Marie turned to the things she enjoyed. She spent more time on her hobbies and interests. She loved fashion and began to wear even more elaborate dresses. She also spent money on jewelry, furniture, and other luxuries. But Marie's spending soon became a problem. The French economy was struggling, and many people were poor. When they heard about Marie's extravagant lifestyle, they were angry. They called her wasteful and selfish. Marie didn't understand why they were so critical. She was just trying to make the best of her situation. The pressure on Marie grew. She was constantly watched and judged. Every mistake she made was exaggerated. Every word she said was analyzed. She felt like she could never do anything right. One day, Marie decided to create her own space at Versailles. She had a small village built on the palace grounds. It was called the Hameau de la Reine, or the Queen's Hamlet. It was a place where she could escape from the pressures of court life. She dressed like a peasant and pretended to live a simple life. It was a way for her to relax and be herself. But even this innocent hobby was criticized. People thought it was strange and inappropriate for a queen to pretend to be a peasant. They didn't understand why Marie wanted to escape from her royal duties. Marie's relationship with Louis also became a source of gossip. The couple had been married for several years, but they still had no children. In those days, having an heir was very important. People began to wonder if there was something wrong with Marie or Louis. The rumors hurt Marie deeply. She wanted to have children, but it wasn't happening. She felt like she was failing as a wife and a queen. The pressure to produce an heir was overwhelming. Despite the challenges, Marie tried to stay positive. She made a few close friends, including the Princesse de Lamballe and the Duchesse de Polignac. These women were loyal to Marie and supported her during difficult times. Marie also found joy in her role as queen. She loved hosting parties and events. She was known for her generosity and kindness. She often gave money to the poor and supported charitable causes. But the criticism never stopped. The more Marie tried to be herself, the more people judged her. She was caught between her desire to be happy and her duty to be a perfect queen. As the years passed, Marie began to feel the weight of her responsibilities. She knew that her life was not her own. She was a queen, and everything she did affected the people of France. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was a young woman, trying to find her place in a world of beauty and secrets. As she walked through the grand halls of Versailles, Marie took a deep breath. She was determined to be strong. She would do her best to fulfill her duty and make her family proud. But the pressure was growing. The whispers were getting louder. Marie knew that her life would never be easy. The Palace of Versailles was a place of dreams and nightmares. For Marie Antoinette, it was both. Chapter 4. A Queen at Last. On May 10th, 1774, King Louis XV died. He had ruled France for nearly 60 years. His death marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Marie Antoinette's husband, Louis Auguste, became King Louis XVI. At just 19 years old, Marie was now the Queen of France. The news spread quickly. The people of France were hopeful. They wanted a fresh start after years of struggle. They looked to their new king and queen with optimism. But Marie was nervous. She was young and inexperienced. She knew that being queen would not be easy. The coronation of Louis XVI took place on June 11th, 1775, in the Grand Cathedral of Reims. It was a magnificent ceremony, filled with tradition and symbolism. Marie watched as her husband was crowned king. She felt a mix of pride and fear. She was now the queen of one of the most powerful countries in Europe. As queen, Marie had many responsibilities. She was expected to be a role model for the people of France. She had to attend official events, host parties, and support charitable causes. She also had to manage her household and the many servants who worked for her. Marie tried to fulfill her duties, but she struggled. She was still young and unsure of herself. She often felt overwhelmed by the expectations placed on her. She missed the carefree days of her youth. One of Marie's biggest challenges was her relationship with the French people. At first, they were excited about their new queen. They admired her beauty and charm, but over time, they began to criticize her. Marie's love for luxury was one of the main reasons for her unpopularity. She spent large amounts of money on clothes, jewelry, and parties. She also made changes to the Palace of Versailles, adding new furniture and decorations. While Marie enjoyed these luxuries, the people of France were suffering. The country was in financial trouble, and many people were poor. When they heard about Marie's spending, they were angry. They called her Madame Deficit and blamed her for the country's problems. Marie didn't understand why people were so critical. She believed that as queen, she had the right to enjoy the finer things in life. She didn't realize how her actions were affecting others. Another problem was Marie's distant manner. She was often seen as cold and aloof. She didn't connect with the people of France in the way they expected. She preferred to spend time with her close friends and family, rather than engaging with the public. This distance made Marie even more unpopular. People felt that she didn't care about them. They wanted a queen who was compassionate and involved. Instead, they saw Marie as selfish and out of touch. The criticism hurt Marie deeply. She wanted to be a good queen, but she didn't know how. She felt like she was constantly being judged. Every mistake she made was exaggerated. Every word she said was analyzed. Marie's relationship with Louis was also strained. Louis was now king, but he was still shy and reserved. He spent most of his time working on his hobbies or dealing with political matters. He didn't seem interested in spending time with Marie. The couple still had no children, which added to the pressure. In those days, having an heir was very important. People began to wonder if there was something wrong with Marie or Louis. The rumors hurt Marie deeply. She wanted to have children, but it wasn't happening. Despite the challenges, Marie tried to stay positive. She found joy in her hobbies and interests. She loved music, theater, and art. She often attended concerts and performances. She also spent time in the gardens of Versailles, where she could escape from the pressures of court life. Marie also made a few close friends, including the Princesse de Lamballe and the Duchesse de Polignac. These women were loyal to Marie and supported her during difficult times. They provided her with comfort and companionship. But the criticism never stopped. The more Marie tried to be herself, the more people judged her. She was caught between her desire to be happy and her duty to be a perfect queen. As the years passed, Marie began to feel the weight of her responsibilities. She knew that her life was not her own. She was a queen, and everything she did affected the people of France. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was a young queen, trying to find her place in a world of luxury and criticism. As she looked out the window of her grand palace, Marie took a deep breath. She was determined to be strong. She would do her best to fulfill her duty and make her family proud. But trouble was brewing. The whispers were getting louder. Marie knew that her life would never be easy. The crown was heavy, and the pressure was growing. Marie Antoinette was now the Queen of France. But at what cost? Chapter 5. The Diamond Necklace Scandal. In 1785, a shocking scandal rocked France. It was called the Affair of the Diamond Necklace. This scandal would change Marie Antoinette's life forever. The story began with a beautiful diamond necklace. It was made of 647 diamonds and was worth a fortune. The necklace had been created for King Louis XV, but he died before he could buy it. The jeweler, Charles Auguste Boomer, was desperate to sell it. He offered it to Marie Antoinette, but she refused. She thought it was too expensive and unnecessary. But the jeweler didn't give up. He looked for another buyer. That's when he met Jeanne de Valois Saint-Remy, a woman who claimed to be a close friend of the Queen. Jeanne was clever and manipulative. She saw an opportunity to get rich. Jeanne came up with a plan. She told the jeweler that the Queen wanted to buy the necklace secretly. She even showed him fake letters, supposedly written by Marie Antoinette. The jeweler believed her and handed over the necklace. Jeanne then gave the necklace to her lover, Cardinal de Rohan. The cardinal was a powerful man, but he was not in favor with the Queen. Jeanne told him that if he helped the Queen buy the necklace, he would win her favor. The cardinal agreed and took the necklace, thinking he was helping Marie. But the truth soon came out. The jeweler realized he had been tricked when he didn't receive payment for the necklace. He went to the palace and demanded to see the Queen. Marie was shocked. She had never wanted the necklace. She had never even seen it. The scandal became public. People were outraged. They couldn't believe that such a thing could happen. The cardinal and Jeanne were arrested and put on trial. During the trial, many lies were told. Jeanne tried to blame Marie Antoinette. She said the Queen was involved in the plan. The people of France were quick to believe the worst. They thought Marie was greedy and dishonest. The trial ended with the cardinal being found not guilty. Jeanne was punished, but the damage was done. Marie's reputation was ruined. The people of France turned against her. Marie was devastated. She had done nothing wrong, but she was being blamed for everything. She tried to explain the truth, but no one listened. The scandal had already spread too far. The diamond necklace scandal was a turning point in Marie's life. Before the scandal, she was already unpopular. But after the scandal, she became a symbol of everything that was wrong with the monarchy. The people of France were angry. They were tired of the royal family's extravagance. They were tired of being poor while the king and queen lived in luxury. the scandal was the final straw. Marie's life became even more difficult. She was constantly criticized and judged. Every move she made was watched. She felt like she could never do anything right. Despite the challenges, Marie tried to stay strong. She focused on her family and her duties as queen. She hoped that one day the people would see the truth, but the damage was done. The diamond necklace scandal had changed everything. Marie Antoinette was no longer just a queen. She was a target. As she looked out the window of her grand palace, Marie took a deep breath. She knew that her life would never be the same. The scandal had left a dark shadow over her reign. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was a queen, trying to hold on to her dignity in a world of lies and betrayal. The diamond necklace scandal was a reminder that even the most powerful people are not immune to scandal. Marie Antoinette's life was a mix of luxury and tragedy, and the worst was yet to come. Before we begin Chapter 6, a quick note for our listeners. You're currently listening to this audiobook on WooEnglish. Remember, this content is specially made for WooEnglish listeners only. If you're hearing it on any other channel, it may be a violation of WooEnglish's rights. Please ensure you're tuned into the right source to fully enjoy and respect this audiobook journey. Now, let's continue the story. Chapter 6. A Mother's Joy. On December 19th, 1778, Marie Antoinette gave birth to her first child. It was a girl, named Marie-Thérèse. The queen was overjoyed. After years of waiting and hoping, she was finally a mother. The birth was not easy. Marie suffered greatly, and there were moments of fear. But when she held her baby for the first time, all the pain was forgotten. She looked at her daughter with tears in her eyes. This tiny, perfect child was her greatest joy. Marie became a devoted mother. She spent hours with her baby, playing and caring for her. She wanted to be involved in every part of her daughter's life. She even insisted on breastfeeding, which was unusual for a queen. The people of France were happy for Marie. They saw her as a loving mother, and this improved her image. For a while, the criticism and gossip faded. Marie was no longer just a queen. She was a mother, and that made her more relatable. Over the next few years, Marie had 3 more children. In 1781, she gave birth to a son, Louis Joseph. He was the Dauphin, the heir to the throne. Marie was overjoyed to have a son. She loved her children deeply and was proud to be their mother. In 1785, Marie had another son, Louis Charles. He was a lively and cheerful child. Marie adored him and spent as much time with him as she could. Finally, in 1786, she gave birth to a second daughter, Sophie. Marie's life was now filled with the laughter and love of her children. She enjoyed spending time with them, away from the pressures of court life. She created a warm and loving home for her family. But even motherhood could not shield Marie from the growing unrest in France. The country was in crisis. The economy was struggling, and many people were poor. They were angry with the royal family for their extravagant lifestyle. Marie tried to be a good queen and a good mother. She supported charitable causes and gave money to the poor, but it wasn't enough. The people of France wanted change, and they blamed the monarchy for their problems. In 1789, tragedy struck. Marie's youngest daughter, Sophie, died at just 11 months old. Marie was heartbroken. She had already lost her mother, Empress Maria Theresa, a few years earlier. Now, she had to face the pain of losing a child. The loss of Sophie was a heavy blow. Marie's grief was overwhelming. She spent hours in her private chapel praying for her daughter's soul. She felt like she had failed as a mother, but Marie had to stay strong for her other children. She focused on their needs and tried to protect them from the growing unrest. She knew that her family was in danger, but she didn't know what to do. The situation in France was getting worse. The people were angry and desperate. They wanted a revolution. Marie and Louis tried to make changes, but it was too late. In July 1789, the storming of the Bastille marked the beginning of the French Revolution. The royal family was in danger. Marie knew that her life would never be the same. Despite the chaos, Marie remained devoted to her children. She tried to shield them from the violence and fear. She wanted them to have a normal childhood, even in the midst of a revolution. But the pressure was growing. Marie knew that her family was in grave danger. She had to be strong for herself and for her children. As she looked at her children, Marie felt a mix of love and fear. She wanted to protect them, but she didn't know how. The world around them was falling apart. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was a mother, trying to hold on to her family in a world of chaos. Marie's children were her greatest joy and her greatest worry. She loved them more than anything in the world, but she knew that their future was uncertain. As she held her youngest son, Louis Charles, in her arms, Marie took a deep breath. She was determined to be strong. She would do everything she could to protect her children. But the storm was coming. The revolution was growing. And Marie Antoinette's life was about to change forever. Chapter 7. The Storm Gathers. By the late 1780s, France was in crisis. The country was bankrupt, and the people were suffering. Years of poor harvests had led to food shortages. Bread, the staple of the French diet, was expensive and scarce. Many people were hungry and desperate. The royal family lived in luxury at Versailles, but outside the palace walls, anger was growing. The people blamed King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette for their problems. They believed the monarchy was wasteful and out of touch. Marie and Louis knew that France was in trouble. They tried to make changes, but it was too late. The king called for a meeting of the Estates General, a group of representatives from different parts of French society. He hoped they could find a solution to the country's problems. The Estates General met in May 1789. It was the first time they had been called in over 150 years. The representatives were divided into three groups: the clergy, the nobility, and the common people. The common people, known as the Third Estate, demanded more power. They wanted a fairer system. But the king and the nobility resisted. They were unwilling to give up their privileges. The Third Estate grew frustrated. They felt that their voices were not being heard. On June 20th, 1789, the Third Estate took a bold step. They declared themselves the National Assembly. They claimed to represent the people of France. This was a direct challenge to the king's authority. Louis was unsure of what to do. He tried to compromise, but it was too late. The people were no longer willing to wait. They wanted change, and they wanted it now. On July 14th, 1789, the storm broke. The people of Paris rose up in anger. They stormed the Bastille, a prison and symbol of royal power. The fall of the Bastille marked the beginning of the French Revolution. Marie and Louis were shocked. They had never imagined that things would go this far. They realized that their lives were in danger. The royal family was no longer safe at Versailles. In October 1789, a mob of angry women marched to Versailles. They were hungry and desperate. They demanded bread and justice. The crowd was furious. They shouted insults at the king and queen. Marie and Louis were forced to leave Versailles. They were taken to the Tuileries Palace in Paris. It was a humiliating and frightening experience. The royal family was now prisoners in their own country. Life at the Tuileries was very different from life at Versailles. The palace was crowded and uncomfortable. Marie and Louis were constantly watched. They had little privacy or freedom. Marie tried to stay strong for her children. She wanted to protect them from the fear and uncertainty. But it was difficult. The world around them was falling apart. In June 1791, the royal family attempted to escape. They disguised themselves and fled Paris in the middle of the night. Their plan was to reach the border and seek help from loyal supporters. But the escape failed. The royal family was recognized and captured in the town of Varennes. They were brought back to Paris in disgrace. The people were furious. They felt betrayed by their king and queen. The failed escape was a turning point. It destroyed any remaining trust between the royal family and the people of France. Marie and Louis knew that their situation was desperate. In September 1791, a new constitution was introduced. It limited the king's power and made France a constitutional monarchy. Louis was forced to accept it, but he was unhappy. He felt that his authority had been taken away. Marie was also unhappy. She believed that the monarchy was being destroyed. She wanted to fight back, but she didn't know how. The royal family was trapped, with no way out. As the months passed, the situation grew worse. The revolution became more radical. The people demanded the end of the monarchy. Marie and Louis knew that their time was running out. In August 1792, the storm reached its peak. A mob attacked the Tuileries Palace. The royal family was forced to flee for their lives. They sought refuge in the Legislative Assembly, but they were no longer safe. On September 21st, 1792, the monarchy was officially abolished. France was declared a republic. Marie and Louis were no longer king and queen. They were now prisoners of the revolution. The storm had gathered, and it was about to break. The royal family was in grave danger. Marie knew that her life would never be the same. As she looked at her children, Marie felt a mix of love and fear. She wanted to protect them, but she didn't know how. The world around them was falling apart. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come, but for now, she was a mother, trying to hold on to her family in a world of chaos. The storm had come, and it was about to change everything. Marie Antoinette's life was about to take a tragic turn. Chapter 8. The Fall of Versailles. On October 5th, 1789, the storm that had been gathering over France finally reached Versailles. An angry mob of thousands marched from Paris to the palace. They were hungry, desperate, and furious. They wanted bread, and they wanted justice. The royal family had been living in luxury at Versailles, but outside the palace walls, the people were suffering. The economic crisis had left many without food or work. The gap between the rich and the poor had never been wider. The people blamed King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette for their misery. As the mob approached Versailles, panic spread through the palace. The king and queen were warned of the danger, but they didn't know what to do. Louis tried to remain calm, but Marie was terrified. She knew that the people's anger was directed at her. The mob arrived at Versailles late in the afternoon. They were armed with sticks, knives, and whatever they could find. They shouted insults and demands. "Bread!" they cried. "Give us bread!" The king met with a group of representatives from the mob. He promised to provide food and to support the people's demands. But the crowd was not satisfied. They wanted more. They wanted the royal family to come to Paris. That night, the palace was tense. Marie and Louis stayed in their rooms, surrounded by guards. They could hear the noise of the mob outside. It was a long and frightening night. Early the next morning, the mob broke into the palace. They stormed through the halls, looking for the queen. Marie barely escaped in time. She ran through a secret passage to the king's room. Her heart was pounding. She knew that her life was in danger. The mob was furious. They broke into Marie's bedroom, destroying everything in their path. They shouted for her head. It was a terrifying moment. Finally, Louis appeared on a balcony to address the crowd. He promised to go to Paris with his family. The people cheered, but it was not a happy moment. The royal family was now prisoners of the revolution. Marie joined Louis on the balcony. She held her children close. The crowd shouted insults at her, but she remained calm. She knew that she had to be strong for her family. Later that day, the royal family left Versailles for the last time. They were taken to the Tuileries Palace in Paris. The journey was slow and humiliating. The mob followed them, shouting and waving weapons. As they left Versailles, Marie looked back at the palace. It had been her home for nearly 20 years. She had lived there as a young bride, a queen, and a mother. Now she was leaving it behind, not knowing if she would ever return. Life at the Tuileries was very different from life at Versailles. The palace was crowded and uncomfortable. The royal family had little privacy or freedom. They were constantly watched by guards and revolutionaries. Marie tried to stay strong for her children. She wanted to protect them from the fear and uncertainty. But it was difficult. The world around them was falling apart. The fall of Versailles was a turning point in the French Revolution. It marked the end of the old monarchy and the beginning of a new era. For Marie and Louis, it was the beginning of a long and difficult journey. As she looked out of the window of the Tuileries Palace, Marie felt a mix of emotions. She was scared for her family's future, but she was also determined to survive. She knew that the road ahead would be hard, but she was ready to face it. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come. But for now, she was a prisoner, trying to hold on to her dignity in a world of chaos. The fall of Versailles was a symbol of the end of an era. For Marie Antoinette, it was the beginning of a tragic new chapter. Chapter 9. The Escape That Failed. By 1791, the royal family's situation was desperate. They were prisoners in the Tuileries Palace, watched day and night. The revolution was growing more radical, and their lives were in danger. Marie and Louis knew they had to act. They decided to escape. Their plan was to flee Paris and reach the town of Montmédy, near the border. There, they would join loyal supporters and try to regain control of France. It was a risky plan, but they had no other choice. The escape was carefully planned. The royal family would disguise themselves as ordinary travelers. Marie would pretend to be a governess, and Louis would pose as a servant. Their children would also be disguised. On the night of June 20th, 1791, the family made their move. They left the Tuileries Palace in secret, one by one. Marie's heart was pounding as she stepped into the dark streets of Paris. She knew that if they were caught, the consequences would be terrible. The family boarded a carriage and began their journey. At first, everything went smoothly. They traveled through the night, hoping to reach safety before anyone noticed they were gone. But as the hours passed, problems arose. The carriage was slow, and they had to make several stops. Louis insisted on traveling at a leisurely pace, which wasted precious time. Marie grew more and more anxious. By the time they reached the town of Varennes, it was too late. A local official recognized the king from his portrait on a coin. The family was arrested and taken to the town hall. Marie was devastated. She knew that their escape had failed. The people of Varennes were angry and confused. They couldn't believe that their king and queen had tried to flee. News of the capture spread quickly. The people of France were furious. They saw the escape as a betrayal. The royal family had tried to abandon them, and that was unforgivable. The family was taken back to Paris under heavy guard. The journey was humiliating. Crowds lined the roads, shouting insults and throwing stones. Marie held her children close, trying to shield them from the anger. When they arrived in Paris, the family was locked in the Tuileries Palace once again. But this time, they were treated even more harshly. Guards watched their every move, and their freedoms were further restricted. The failed escape was a turning point. It destroyed any remaining trust between the royal family and the people of France. Marie and Louis were now seen as traitors. Their fate hung in the balance. In September 1791, a new constitution was introduced. It limited the king's power and made France a constitutional monarchy. Louis was forced to accept it, but he was unhappy. He felt that his authority had been taken away. Marie was also unhappy. She believed that the monarchy was being destroyed. She wanted to fight back, but she didn't know how. The royal family was trapped, with no way out. As the months passed, the situation grew worse. The revolution became more radical. The people demanded the end of the monarchy. Marie and Louis knew that their time was running out. In August 1792, the storm reached its peak. A mob attacked the Tuileries Palace. The royal family was forced to flee for their lives. They sought refuge in the Legislative Assembly, but they were no longer safe. On September 21st, 1792, the monarchy was officially abolished. France was declared a republic. Marie and Louis were no longer king and queen. They were now prisoners of the revolution. The failed escape had sealed their fate. The royal family was in grave danger. Marie knew that her life would never be the same. As she looked at her children, Marie felt a mix of love and fear. She wanted to protect them, but she didn't know how. The world around them was falling apart. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the years to come, but for now, she was a prisoner, trying to hold on to her family in a world of chaos. The escape that failed was a tragic moment in Marie's life. It marked the beginning of the end for the royal family. Their fate was now in the hands of the revolution. Chapter 10. The King's Tragic End. By December 1792, the French Revolution had reached a dark and violent stage. The royal family was no longer just imprisoned. They were on trial for their lives. Louis XVI, once the King of France, was now a prisoner accused of treason. The trial began in the National Convention, the new government of France. Louis was charged with conspiring against the revolution and betraying the people. The accusations were serious, and the mood was tense. Marie Antoinette watched from her prison cell, filled with fear and despair. She knew that her husband's life was in danger. She wanted to help him, but there was nothing she could do. She was a prisoner too, separated from her children and powerless to stop what was happening. Louis faced his trial with dignity. He denied the charges and defended his actions, but the outcome was already decided. The revolutionaries wanted to make an example of him. They wanted to show that the monarchy was gone forever. On January 15th, 1793, the verdict was announced. Louis was found guilty of treason. The punishment was death. Marie was devastated. She couldn't believe that her husband, the father of her children, was going to be executed. She begged for mercy, but no one listened. The revolution showed no mercy. On January 20th, Louis was allowed to see his family one last time. It was a heartbreaking meeting. Marie and the children cried as they said goodbye. Louis tried to comfort them, but his own heart was breaking. He knew that he would never see them again. The next morning, Louis was taken to the Place de la Révolution in Paris. A large crowd had gathered to watch the execution. The guillotine, a new and brutal machine, stood in the center of the square. Louis climbed the steps to the guillotine with calmness and courage. He addressed the crowd, forgiving those who had condemned him. Then he placed his head on the block. The blade fell. Louis XVI was dead. Marie was not allowed to witness the execution, but she heard the news soon after. She was overwhelmed with grief. Her husband, her partner, was gone. She was now a widow, and her children were fatherless. The days that followed were dark and lonely. Marie was consumed by sorrow. She thought about her husband and the life they had shared. She thought about their children and the uncertain future they faced. The revolutionaries showed no pity. Marie was treated harshly, and her conditions in prison grew worse. She was separated from her son, Louis Charles, and her daughter, Marie-Thérèse. She was alone, with no one to comfort her. But Marie tried to stay strong. She knew that she had to survive for her children. She wanted to protect them, even if she couldn't be with them. The execution of Louis XVI was a turning point in the French Revolution. It marked the end of the monarchy and the beginning of a new era of terror. For Marie Antoinette, it was the beginning of her own tragic end. As she sat in her prison cell, Marie thought about her life. She had been a queen, a wife, and a mother. Now she was a prisoner, alone and afraid. The story of Marie Antoinette was far from over. She would face many more challenges in the months to come, but for now, she was a widow, trying to hold on to her dignity in a world of chaos. The king's tragic end was a reminder of the cruelty of the revolution. Marie Antoinette's life was about to take another dark turn. Chapter 11. The Last Days of a Queen. After the execution of Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette's life became even more difficult. She was moved to a new prison, the Conciergerie, in August 1793. It was a dark, damp, and cold place. The conditions were harsh, and Marie's health began to decline. Worst of all, she was separated from her children. Her son, Louis Charles, was taken away and kept in a different prison. Her daughter, Marie-Thérèse, was also held separately. Marie was completely alone. She missed her children terribly and worried about their safety. In October 1793, Marie was put on trial. The charges against her were shocking and false. She was accused of treason, conspiracy, and even of harming her own son. The accusations were absurd, but the revolutionaries wanted to destroy her reputation. Marie faced her trial with courage and dignity. She was calm and composed, even when the accusations were cruel and unfair. She denied all the charges and defended herself with intelligence and grace. One of the most painful moments came when she was accused of harming her son. Marie was deeply hurt by this lie. She turned to the women in the courtroom and said, "If I have not replied, it is because nature itself refuses to answer such a charge brought against a mother." The trial lasted for 2 days. The outcome was already decided. Marie was found guilty and sentenced to death. Marie accepted her fate with bravery. She wrote a final letter to her sister-in-law, expressing her love for her children and her hope that they would one day be reunited. She also asked for forgiveness for her enemies. The letter was never delivered. On October 16, 1793, Marie was taken to the Place de la Révolution for her execution. She wore a simple white dress and her hair was cut short. She was calm and composed, showing no fear. The journey to the guillotine was slow and humiliating. Crowds lined the streets, shouting insults and curses. Marie ignored them. She kept her head high and her dignity intact. When she arrived at the guillotine, Marie stepped out of the cart with grace. She climbed the steps to the platform without hesitation. Her final moments were quiet and dignified. The blade fell. Marie Antoinette was dead. The world watched in shock as the story of the once glamorous queen came to a tragic end. Her execution marked the end of an era and the triumph of the revolution. Marie's final days were filled with sorrow, but also with dignity. She faced her fate with courage and strength. She remained a devoted mother until the very end, thinking of her children even in her darkest moments. The story of Marie Antoinette is one of tragedy and resilience. She was a queen who faced unimaginable challenges with grace and bravery. Her life was marked by luxury and loss, joy and sorrow. As the world remembered Marie Antoinette, her legacy lived on. She became a symbol of the excesses of the monarchy, but also of the human cost of revolution. Her story continues to fascinate and inspire, reminding us of the power of dignity and courage in the face of adversity. The last days of Marie Antoinette were a testament to her strength and character. She faced her fate with bravery, leaving behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Chapter 12. A Legacy Remembered. Marie Antoinette's life ended tragically on October 16, 1793. Her execution marked the end of an era. But her story did not end there. It lived on, capturing the imagination of people around the world. Marie was remembered in many ways. To some, she was a symbol of the excesses of royalty. Her love for luxury and her extravagant spending became legendary. The phrase, "let them eat cake," was often attributed to her, though there is no evidence she ever said it. This phrase came to represent the disconnect between the monarchy and the people. To others, Marie was a victim of the revolution. She was a woman who faced unimaginable challenges with courage and dignity. Her final days, filled with sorrow and bravery, touched the hearts of many. Marie's children also played a role in her legacy. Her daughter, Marie-Thérèse, was the only member of the immediate family to survive the revolution. She was released from prison in 1795 and later married her cousin, the Duke of Angoulême. She worked to restore the memory of her parents and to honor their legacy. Marie's son, Louis Charles, did not survive. He died in prison in 1795 at the age of 10. His death was a tragic reminder of the cruelty of the revolution. In the years that followed, Marie Antoinette became a figure of fascination. Books, plays, and films were made about her life. She was portrayed as a tragic queen, a devoted mother, and a symbol of the old world. Her story also inspired artists and writers. Paintings, sculptures, and operas were created in her honor. Her life became a source of inspiration for many. Marie's legacy is complex. She was a woman of contradictions. She was a queen who loved luxury, but also a mother who cared deeply for her children. She was a symbol of the excesses of royalty, but also a victim of the revolution. Her life reminds us of the human cost of political change. It shows us the dangers of inequality and the importance of understanding and compassion. As the years passed, Marie Antoinette's story continued to resonate. She became a symbol of resilience and courage. Her ability to face adversity with dignity inspired many. Today, Marie Antoinette is remembered in many ways. Her life is studied by historians, and her story is told in schools and museums. Her legacy lives on in the hearts of those who are inspired by her courage and strength. The story of Marie Antoinette is one of tragedy and resilience. It is a story of a woman who faced unimaginable challenges with grace and bravery. Her life was marked by luxury and loss, joy and sorrow. As we look back on her life, we are reminded of the power of dignity and courage in the face of adversity. Marie Antoinette's legacy continues to fascinate and inspire, reminding us of the human cost of revolution and the enduring power of the human spirit. The story of Marie Antoinette is far from over. It lives on in the hearts and minds of those who are inspired by her courage and strength. Her legacy is a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring power of the human spirit. Marie Antoinette's life was a journey of joy and sorrow, luxury and loss. Her story continues to captivate and inspire, reminding us of the human cost of revolution and the enduring power of the human spirit. As we remember Marie Antoinette, we are reminded of the importance of understanding and compassion. Her legacy lives on, a testament to the power of resilience and the enduring power of the human spirit.